Hello, everyone. Let me say something that is going to hit a nerve in the best way. Most of what you call your personality is actually your nervous system doing its job. The way that you love, the way that you lead teams inside of your organizations, the way that you shut down, the way that you over explain, the way you overfunction, the way you disappear, the way you grip tighter when things feel uncertain, all of that is not random. That is attachment coding. That is trauma response. That is survival intelligence. And here is the part nobody wants to admit. You can be smart, you can be spiritual, you can be successful, you can be self aware and still be running on your old code. And I had to face this in myself. I have been in rooms where I sounded confident, I sounded evolved, I sounded clear, and then one moment of silence from someone I cared about, or one moment of uncertainty, and my body began to tell myself the old story. And it wasn't because I didn't know any better, but it was because my system was so used to scanning for threats. And what changed my life was realizing this is not about being broken. This is about being coded. So today we are naming the code, we are naming the pattern, and we are talking about what it means to change your reality fast. When you stop arguing with your nervous system, you start rewiring the root. So, welcome everyone back to Naming the Purple Elephant podcast. This is the space where human behavior, nervous system truth, attachment theory, leadership, love, identity, and healing all meet. If you're new here, welcome. I am Janora, and my work lives at the intersection of personal healing and leadership stabilization. I help people and organizations identify the emotional and behavioral patterns that quietly sabotage connection, trust, performance, and peace. Quick note, this episode is educational. It's not therapy, it's not medical advice. Take what resonates, leave what does not. And if you need professional support, please get it. Now, let's talk about attachment styles, trauma responses, and the quantum self, and why this chapter matters more than people realize. So, what people hear when they hear someone say attachment style is they automatically think it's a cute quiz. They think it's just dating language. No. Attachment style is your nervous system's relationship strategy. It is how your body learned to stay safe in closeness. It is how your brain learned to predict love, and it is how your identity formed when you were a child around connection, rejection, approval, abandonment, conflict, repair, and power. Your attachment coding shows up in five places every single time. One, how you interpret silence. Two, how you handle conflict. Three, how you ask for what you need. Four, what you do when you feel unsafe. And five, how long it takes you to come back to yourself after something triggers you. For me, silence used to feel like punishment, not logically, but nervously. Like my body would literally go into, oh my God, something is wrong now. I've got to fix it now, now. And I had to learn the difference between someone needing space and me interpreting space as abandonment. And that one distinction alone changed how I love, how I communicate, how I lead, and how I just show up in my daily life. And so the last one Healing speed is the part that nobody talks about because two people can experience the same event and one person can spiral for 2 weeks and the other person can recalibrate in 1 hour. And it's not because one person cares more, it's not because one person is more spiritual. It is because one nervous system has more capacity, more safety, more internal secure wiring, and fewer survival loops running in the background. Let's address something that people get weird about. People get really weird about this. When someone says, I healed fast, there's almost always somebody in the room ready to challenge it. Like, healing has to be slow to be valid, which is completely untrue. People have these ideas that you have to suffer long enough to prove you did the work. And here's why people struggle to believe quick healing is real. First of all, they confuse healing with never being triggered again. Healing is not the absence of a trigger. Healing is your ability to recover faster, respond cleaner, and stay connected to yourself even when something is activating you. Because let's get honest, we can live for a very, very long time. You are never gonna not encounter something in your life that's not gonna trigger you. That's unrealistic. And so it's not about um, avoiding the triggers. It's about developing an internal system within inside of yourself that allows you to be able to respond to the trigger instead of reacting to the trigger. Second, another reason why people have a hard time believing that people can heal fast is that some people are attached to the idea that time equals death. But time is not the same thing as transformation. You can repeat the same emotional loop for 5 years and call it processing, or you can have one moment of truth and your entire nervous system reorganizes around it. And thirdly, people assume healing has to look like a breakdown. Like if you're not crying every day, reliving everything, unpacking every memory, then it must not be real. But sometimes healing looks like one sentence landing in your body and then resonating and your system finally exhaling. And here's the myth. The myth is that fast healing is fake, it's avoidant, it's spiritual bypassing. No. Fast healing is often what happens when someone finally stops negotiating with their survival identity and starts living from regulation and boundaries and truth. And I'm going to say this plainly. Some people do not heal slowly because healing is slow. Some people heal slowly because their nervous system keeps choosing the same protection strategies over and over and over again. So, let me break down the main attachment styles in a way that will actually help you see yourself. Let's talk about secure attachment. Now, secure attachment is what everyone wants to be. And I want to be very clear about this. We are not born securely attached, but we can develop systems internally within ourselves to become secure attached. So, what does that mean to be secure attached? Well, secure does not mean perfect, secure means flexible. Secure people can be triggered, but they can come back from the trigger very quickly. They don't react to the trigger, they respond to it. They can be upset, but they do not abandon themselves while being upset. They can hear constructive feedback without immediately collapsing into shame. And they can hear, I need space without assuming the relationship is over. Secure attachment looks like I'm upset, I can communicate, I can self regulate, and I can repair. And I had moments recently where I watched myself stay grounded in real time, even when someone tried to pull me into an emotional tug of war. And I remember thinking to myself, all right, your secure attachment is in place, girl, right? Um, and it wasn't that I had the perfect response. I just remained steady because I don't have to abandon myself to prove a point or to survive a moment. Now, let's talk about my favorite attachment style, anxious attachment. And I'm going to tell you why this is my favorite attachment style. If anybody knows about anxious attachment, it would be me. That was my attachment style before I began transitioning into secure. So, for all my anxious attachment people out there, I've got so much love and empathy for you. So anxious attachment is hyperconnection seeking. It is not neediness. It is threat sensitivity. So a lot of anxious attachment people get confused of being needy, right? That's what people say to them. You're so needy, you're so needy, you're so needy. An anxious attachment person is not needy. They are just operating off of threat sensitivity. And so their body learns that closeness can disappear. And so they have to try to secure it with intensity. So, some thoughts that an anxious attachment person may have, they might say to themselves, I don't feel that I'm okay in this relationship. They may ask the person that they're with, are we okay? I need you to tell me that you still care. I feel like you're pulling away. Why are you acting different? Um, and it's not to say that those things might not actually be happening, right? Like, I don't want to gaslight you. It's very possible that those things could be happening, but the difference is anxious attachment people see that happening in every situation all the time, 24/7. And underneath it, though, is this deep core belief of if I do not perform for love, I will lose it. And so in leadership, anxious attachment can look like over managing people, over explaining, over checking, seeking reassurance from staff, needing constant confirmation that everything is fine. And I know anxious energy intimately. Trust me, I lived the version of me that wanted reassurance and wanted clarity and wanted contact and wanted the emotional temperature checked every 5 minutes, every day, 24/7. And it wasn't because I was too much, it was because my system truly believed if I relax, I'm going to lose something. And I had to learn that chasing does not create safety, but regulation, emotional regulation creates safety. Now I'm going to talk about my other favorite attachment style, my dismissive avoidance. Hello. So, my dismissive avoidance, they operate off of self protection through distance. Their body learned that needing people is risky. So they become highly reliant. Oh my God. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm messing up my words right now. So, yes, they intellectualize, they minimize, they detach, and they disappear emotionally. So avoidant attachment sounds like I'm fine. I don't need anyone. I like being by myself. It's not that deep. I don't need anything. I like to be alone. I can handle it on my own. And so in relationships, dismissive avoidant attachment can create confusion because the relationship may still have love present, but the dismissive avoidant doesn't necessarily know how to access it. So love is there, but their nervous system blocks vulnerability. And in leadership, dismissive avoidant attachment looks like conflict avoidance. So these are the people that if they don't get along with someone in their workplace, they're going to avoid them like the plague. A dismissive avoidant at work provides slow feedback, They have emotional unavailability. They disappear when the team needs them. They have a really hard time providing clarity. And they call it being busy, but really it's just them avoiding anything that has to do with conflict or avoiding anything that has to do with emotion. And I've been on the receiving end of a dismissive avoidance protection where love is present, but access maybe is not. And where somebody can feel deeply, but they go quiet and they go distant or they can go cold when the moment asks for vulnerability. And that experience can either make you collapse into self abandonment or it will force you to build secure self leadership. Um, and so now I want to talk about the disorganized attachment. And so the disorganized attachment is this push and pull that's really based around fear. Some of you may also hear it be called fearful avoidant. So, fearful avoidant and disorganized attachment is interchangeable a lot in these spaces. So, whatever you call it, whether you're calling it a fearful avoidant or a disorganized attachment, it's the same thing. And disorganized people, they have this constant push pull relationship with everybody. They want closeness, but they're so scared of it at the same time. And, they're craving safety, but they also distrust safety at the same time. And this often develops when love for them as a child was unpredictable, or when a person who is supposed to be safe in their life becomes the source of fear. And they're like, wait a minute, my safety protections have to come on now. So, disorganized attachment can sound like, I miss you, but I do not want you to come any closer. Or it can sound like, I really want this relationship, but I also really cannot handle this relationship. Or they can say, I want to be seen, but I also really panic when you really see me. And so in leadership, fearful, disorganized attachment can look like inconsistency, emotional swings, sudden shutdowns, unpredictability, and then intense repair attempts followed by another shutdown. I've also seen what push pull does inside of a person. When they want closeness so badly, but closeness feels so unsafe to them. When they want to be loved, but being loved triggers panic. And this isn't drama. This is just an internal war that they are dealing with inside of themselves. And if they do not name it, they will keep mistaking intensity. And so here's the hard truth. Most adults are not walking around as one clean style. They're walking around with a dominant pattern and then a secondary trauma response that hijacks them under pressure. So let's talk trauma responses, not as labels, but as mechanics. When your nervous system senses threat, real or perceived, it chooses survival over connection. It chooses protection over truth, and it's going to choose habit over healing. So there are um, 5 trauma responses that we all have. There's fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and collapse. So fight is control. It is needing to have control in every situation to feel safe. It is defensiveness. It is sharpness. It is needing to win so that you do not feel small. So fight says, if I can dominate this moment, I can avoid the wound. But guess what? You are not avoiding the wound. Flight is doing, fixing, moving, being busy, escaping. And so flight says, if I stay in motion, if I keep myself busy, I don't have to feel the feelings. Guess what? That's not true either. Then you have freeze. And so freeze is just emotionally shutting down. You're just in this emotional fog and this numbness and this dissociation and this procrastination. And so freeze says, if I go offline, nothing can touch me. Well, guess what? That's not true either. Then you have fawn, which is my favorite. Fawn is over accommodating, it's people pleasing, it's self abandoning to keep the peace. And so Fawn says, if I become what you need, you will not leave me. And that is not true either. And then there is one that doesn't get enough airtime, and it's the collapse. Collapse is when the system just gives up, and it's not laziness, it's not being depleted. It's the body saying, I cannot keep protecting you like this. Now, connect this back to attachment coding. Attachment is your relational strategy. Trauma response is your emergency mode. So you can have an avoidant attachment pattern and a fight response when confronted. You can have an anxious attachment pattern and a freeze response when you do not get reassurance. You can look calm on the outside and be in full survival mode on the inside. And this is why people feel like they're doing the work but still repeating the same outcomes. They changed their mindset, but they did not update their nervous system. And your nervous system does not respond to motivational speeches. It responds to safety, it responds to repetition and new experiences that are going to prove the old story is no longer true. So I had a moment recently with a family member of mine where normally the old version of me would have shut down, I would have snapped back, I would have spiraled. Instead, I stayed in my body. I listened. I didn't take ownership of any emotion that wasn't mine. I did not perform. I didn't fawn. I didn't fight. I just held the line. I was completely grounded and rooted in myself. And that moment showed me something. Healing is real when your default reaction changes. When the old doorway shows up, you do not walk through it. Now let's go into the quantum self part, and I want to ground this so that it does not float away into fantasy. When I say quantum self, I am talking about identity and reality shifting at the level of internal coding, the version of you that exists when you are no longer running survival scripts, the version of you that does not have to force outcomes or chase love or overperform to be safe. This is personal for me because I know what it feels like to be the anxious version of yourself and then become the secure version and then have people act confused like, whoa, who are you? Like your stability makes them uncomfortable because it breaks the story that they had about you. Or for some people, they're like, oh, I love this new version of you. Please don't go anywhere. But I'm not here to be understood by the old timeline. I'm here to be aligned with the new one. Your quantum self is not a different person. It is you without the noise. It is you with more capacity. It is you choosing from regulation instead of reaction. And here is the key: healing speed changes when identity changes. And a lot of people try to heal by revisiting the past forever. And sometimes that helps, sometimes it becomes a loop. But because if your identity stays rooted in, I am the person who has to struggle to be loved, I'm the person that has to struggle to be understood, then your nervous system will keep generating evidence to confirm that identity. And this is why some people transform quickly. They stop negotiating with the old self. They stop romanticizing the wound and they stop building their personality around survival. They finally decide, I am the safe place now. I am my emotional regulator. And then they back that decision with new behaviors, new boundaries, new regulations, and new standards. Quantum healing And the way that I talk about it and the way that I internalize it and the way that I do my work with people is when your internal signal changes so clearly that your patterns cannot stay the same without it feeling intolerable. And that is not magic, that is congruence. So let me give you something concrete. Three switches that change everything if you practice them. So, switch number one is interpretation. When you are getting triggered, you need to ask yourself, what story did my nervous system just tell me? Don't say, what did they mean? Ask, what did my body assume that they meant? Because the assumption is often the old code. Silence becomes abandonment, feedback becomes rejection, distance becomes betrayal, conflict becomes danger. Name that old story that you're telling yourself and then pause. I had to learn that just because my body assumes something does not mean it's true. My nervous system can be hella loud and it can still be wrong. And that was such a humbling lesson for me. Switch number two is response. Choose a response that matches the present, not the past. And this is where people fail. They want to heal without behaving differently. And that's not going to work. If you are anxious, the work that you have to do is you need to slow down and you have to be able to tolerate uncertainty without chasing. If you are avoidant, your work is to stay present. You've got to stay present in the moment, even in the worst moments. And you have to be able to tolerate intimacy without disappearing. If you fawn, your work is to tell the truth, even if it can create tension. And if you freeze, your work is to take one small action, even while your body is scared. And for me, the practice was learning to pause before I sent a text, before I picked up the phone, before I demanded clarity, before I tried to force closeness. I learned how to sit in uncertainty without chasing it like a problem to solve. And switch three is repair is the new code. So secure people repair. They do not punish, they don't ghost, they don't withdraw, and they don't test love. They repair every time, all the time. So if you want faster healing, practice repair within yourself first. I got triggered. I did not abandon myself. I came back. That is the nervous system learning safety. Repair was me coming back to myself after a trigger and saying, I'm here, I'm safe, I'm not abandoning me. And that is the real flex, not reacting perfectly, but repairing quickly. And here is another hard truth: your leadership style is your attachment style with a title. If you avoid intimacy in relationships, you probably avoid hard conversations at work. If you overfunction in love, you probably overfunction on teams. If you crave reassurance in partnership, you might crave constant validation from staff or from clients. And the cost is real. Turnover, conflict cycles, miscommunication, burnout, performance issues, mistrust, and you're calling it a people problem when it's a nervous system culture problem. The same in love. People want a healthy relationship, but they're still using protest behaviors or control or distance or silence or test. Love cannot thrive where safety is unstable, and safety is a nervous system experience, not a verbal promise. I've lived both sides. The side where you over explain, over function, over carry because you want everything to be okay. And the side where you realize stability is not built through overperforming, it's built through standards, boundaries, and emotional regulation. And this is exactly the foundation of the new book that I'm writing called The Purple Elephant Quantum Level Healing. Rewiring the Self Beyond Time, Trauma, and Logic. And this book is very personal to me because what I'm seeing in myself and what I'm seeing in the leaders I work with is that healing does not always move in a straight line. Sometimes it moves like a collapse, sometimes it moves like a jump, sometimes you shift in a week because something finally clicks at that identity level, not the informational level. And this book is for people who know that they are transforming faster than traditional models can explain. The people whose healing is not just intellectual, it's energetic, it's embodied, it's behavioral. It's about rewiring the self at the root so you're not managing the symptoms for the next 10 years. So, here's what I want you to take from what I have to say today. Attachment styles are not personality traits, they are nervous system strategies. Trauma responses are not character flaws, they are emergency protocols. And your quantum self is you after you stop running survival code as your identity. And if you're listening and you feel called out, good. That means you are awake. And if you're listening and you feel emotional, good. That means there's something in you that knows it's time to fix it. So, in the next episode, we are going to go deeper into how these patterns shape identity, how they shape love, how they shape leadership decisions, why certain people heal faster when they shift the internal signal first. And if this episode helped you, share it with someone who keeps saying, I don't know why I keep repeating the same cycle. And if you're ready to go deeper, here's what you need to do: subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. Share this with somebody who keeps repeating the same cycle but can't name the pattern. And work with me. I love to coach people on this. I work with leaders, I work with people individually one on one. Please come. Has become my life work, so much so that I am getting certified in industrial organizational psychology around this. And I would love to work with you. I will drop my coaching booking link into the description. And keep following me. I want you to be first in line for the Purple Elephant Quantum Level Healing book when it comes out. I want you on my early access list. That is where I will be sharing experts, tools, and practices that help you rewire in real time. Also, please, if you want support naming your own pattern, mapping your next steps, book a session with me. And we will do this directly. We will do it with clarity and we will do it with zero fluff. All right. Thank you, Purple Elephants. I'll talk to you soon.